Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here, back with another guide for Elden Ring. This time I'm going to show you how to take down the pair of Crucible Knights in Auriza Hero's Grave. This has got to be one of the most difficult mini-dungeon boss fights so far in the game that I've encountered. One Crucible Knight is enough, two is just overkill. What you want to try to do, at least the strategy that I employed and that I recommend, is you want to try to kill the regular Crucible Knight, the one with the spear, first. This is not an easy task, because these guys are best friends and always want to be together. It is very difficult to get them to leave one another's sides. It's like two puppies, I swear to God. So, the attacks that you have to look out for are numerous. There's so much going on in this fight because you have two of these guys to deal with. But if you've been following along with all these guides and going through the game as I have, this will not be your first tango with either of these types of Crucible Knights. So the first one is basically the same as the first Evergaol that you came across back in Limgrave, if you can even remember it back that far. And the spear one you may have run into in Deeproot Depths. Okay, so for the spear Crucible Knight, it has a lot of stabs and a couple of sweeping attacks. From what I have noticed, it's sort of never done with its combos, unless, of course, it hits you. Then it seems to stop on a dime. But you want to be careful of the quick stab that it has. And all these attacks are parryable, but I was not even going to try to parry this thing because of the stab. It just dealt so much damage, I didn't want to expose myself. Okay, so the sweep attacks that it has, it can do them either in short bursts or long sweeping attacks. So depending on where its hands are on the spear, that kind of dictates where things are going. It is actually animated properly, where if the hands are towards the back of the spear, it's going to be a long sweep. But if they are positioned to where the hands are split and one is in the front, it's going to be more of a stab. So you saw there before, it used one of its, let's call it an angelic ability. I'm not really sure the exact name, but it has the ability to shoot a projectile at you from the spear itself. In order to roll through that, you just want to pay attention to the spear itself, and once the spear begins to move towards you, that is when you dodge. Its wing attack, however, is quite different from every other Crucible Knight, because for the spear Crucible Knights, it does a downward lunge. It doesn't just fly through you holding its weapon. So with that in mind, you do need to just roll either into it to get some follow-up damage when it's diving toward you, or you can roll out of the way and then sort of reposition yourself. So here it comes again. We're just going to block it that time because I knew I wasn't going to be able to react in time. So that's the projectile, easy enough to dodge. What I've noticed is that once one of them hits phase 2 and starts getting these angelic abilities, the other one just gets more aggressive. So I don't know if it's actually like that or if my mind was just going crazy because I was trying these guys for over an hour, but that's how it seemed to me. So I'm rolling back there just so I don't also get hooked up by Ordovis in the back because, again, they're like puppies. They're always together, so you got to be careful. The Spear Crucible Knight also has another angelic ability where its hand becomes a dagger, and that attack is a grab, and it can basically one-shot you, even if you're at full health. So you have to be very, very careful of that attack. It's easy enough to roll through, but if you mistime it, it's a ton of damage. So again, throughout this fight, you constantly have to manage your spacing from Ordovis, because his sword has a special attack, and you will get the sword at the end of this fight, don't worry. Or if you hold L2, he will spin it, or if he holds L2, I should say, he will spin the sword and slam it into a big earthquake, and he can do that throughout the fight, even if he's not in phase 2 with the rest of his angelic abilities. So you just gotta be very, very careful and make sure that you are not going in for too many hits on the Spear Knight before Ordovis closes the gap. That's really the whole fight. So for that dagger stab, I actually recommend rolling backwards. This way, the dagger goes through you, and you can follow up for at least one hit along the way. So, once the first knight goes down, Ordovis becomes the boss. So, he doesn't do any crazy transformations outside of, what you may have already seen from regular Crucible Knights with the sword and shield. but he just becomes so much more aggressive because now you killed his puppy friend and he wants vengeance. So all of his attacks have really lengthy follow-ups. So you always have to be mindful of where his weapon is, because even with his big two-handed attacks, he can follow that up with some pretty devastating sweeps, and they seem to just like be never-ending sometimes. So you gotta be very careful. Here I am trying to foolishly parry, and he dropped me to about 15% health. So don't try to parry unless you are really good at parrying in Elden Ring. I am not. You would have noticed once I got Ordovis alone, I put some distance between me and the boss. I ran away for a while, and then I popped a rune arc to activate Godrick's Great Rune. This boosts my stats, including my health, stamina, and FP. The reason for this is because, like I said, I've been doing this fight for about an hour to an hour and a half, and I had gotten him low several times, but would just die to like the perfect amount of damage. So again, I mean, Deathrow is your fault most of the time in Elden Ring, I should say. Unless it's the camera or something, it's generally because of something you messed up. But it seemed like he was just always getting just enough damage to where, had I had popped the rune arc and gotten that bonus, maybe I wouldn't have died. And that really was the difference maker for me, is having a great arc or a great rune active using a rune arc. So for that spin attack, you can roll through it. However, it hits very late, and the shockwave lasts a decent amount of time. So you have to be very, very careful with how you choose to roll. For me, I generally recommend to just avoid it because that shockwave can lead to a lot of follow-up damage. His flying attack is basically the same as the rest of the Crucible Knights that have a sword and shield. Not too much to worry about there. But like the Crucible Knight in the Everjail in Storm Hill in Limgrave, he does have the tail attacks. So to refresh you on those tail attacks, he has one short one that he seems to do all the time when you're close range and you're trying to get damage on him. He just seems to use that as like a, like a posture breaker, like sort of like a rhythm breaker almost. And then he has a big double slam that you have to be, or a big double tail swipe that you got to look out for. They do have two different tells though. When he does the single, he starts from his left. He sort of sticks his butt out to the left, and then he swipes to the right. For the double, it's the opposite. He starts on the right and then flips to the left. So this is the single. He starts from his left, goes to the right. The big one is from the right to the left. So just keep that in mind. It's a little difficult to tell, like, in the moment. I know you're not trying to look at this guy's hips, but, hey, maybe you are. Who knows? But those are the tells for the tail swipes. So if you're able to get to just Ordovis, I would say this fight becomes a lot easier. The only frustration is that you can't really lay into him. You can't get too much damage on him because of this tail swipe. He's always using it to interrupt you and making sure that you can only get one hit on him at a time. And he just has so much poise that it's basically impossible to stagger this guy. Like I said, though, he is parryable, so if you're feeling confident, go for the parries. It is a sword, so it's easy enough to see, but you always want to be on the lookout for those tail swipes, no matter your distance. They can't cover the entire room, but they get pretty close, so just do your best to dodge appropriately. And that is it. That is the double Crucible Knight fight. For your troubles, you would get the full Crucible Knight set alongside Ordovis' greatsword. The entrance to this dungeon is all the way over here, very close to the cliff face. So be on the lookout for that. But it's pretty far away from where you actually end up fighting the boss. But that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Elden Ring, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new guides go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the blue join button below this video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. The links for those are in the description below. As always, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.